Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Headlines on Freedom Square TV. We are, as usual, reaching you from our Enugu studios. Of course, you must remember Enugu is in southeast Nigeria. This morning, Monday, His Excellency the Governor of Enugu State, Enugu Mbah, made a state address. That address centered on the transition to smart green schools in Enugu State. And you will recall that since his administration started, Barr had laid effective emphasis on turning around the educational system in Enugu State. That accounts to 33% of this year's budget allocated to education. Unarguably, the highest in the state, and of course, in Nigeria. It shows a government that is focused, intentional about changing the educational fortunes of our citizens. And so today has ushered in a new epoch in its history as the life of the state children officially began the transition from existing primary and junior secondary schools to smart green schools. This is what they call Governor Mbah's signature initiative in the southeast. He said that true sovereignty will not be handed to us. It will be difficult to be built by us. And it begins with how we educate our children today. That's a very emphatic statement. When we equip them with the skills to innovate, the courage to lead, and the lesson to hope, we reclaim our destiny. A robust statement, you must say. We are no longer a state waiting to be saved. We are a state shaping the future on our own terms. And he added, if we can raise children whose minds are sharp, whose hands are skilled, and whose hearts are strong, we will no longer seek relevance on the world stage. Once we create the environment for them to thrive, and we are indeed doing so, we will set the agenda. I'm being joined this morning to have a holistic look at the governor's address this morning. And there was no better person in my mind to do this emergency work than Barrister Steve Oruruo, who has been several things in this state. But currently, he's the Deputy State Chairman of the PDP. And he is the head of the disciplinary committee of the PDP in the Southeast. He's been a special advisor to the governor of the state on information. He's a barrister at law. Barrister Oruruo, good morning.
A very good morning to you, sir.
It's always a pleasure to have you around. You listened, you watched, and I'm sure you must have read. Enugu State woke up this morning at 7 o'clock, both on television, radio, to a governor who announced the transition from the old model school to the smart school, which is a signature project of this government. The speech outlined several thematic areas. But holistically, what is your take on the speech of the governor?
Well, the speech actually, resonates with a philosophy of a government, an ideology of a government, the very foundation of the trust of the government of Governor Mbah. Actually, when a governor sets out to govern and deliberately portions about 33.2% of the year's budget to education, it's a classical example of definitive intent. It goes to show that he actually wants to remold the society and that the future of the children, our children, should be forged in the classrooms. So it encapsulated not just, the edifice or the physical monument or the beautiful, posturing of the smart school, but it has a lot to do with the intrinsic values. It talked about the main benefits, the destination, and that goes to show, define the governor as a man with clarity of thought and lucidity of the mind to carve out a process that leads to a very clear destination. That destination is that our children will eventually stay here as youths and work in New York metropolis, work in London metropolis, work in Australia and Japan, do businesses in China, while sitting, in their comfort zones in Africa here. And Africa as a whole was captured in that analysis, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of our post-colonial, escape from the claws or from the jaws of, West imperialism. So this is the kind of leadership that Nigerians are yearning for. This kind of leadership that the masses are, calling for. When a leader, goes beyond tokenism, goes beyond mere, flashes of quality leadership to intrinsic values, substance, and end products, the destination is clear. If you capture a child early in life, at the age of 3, the idea is to make sure that the child gets to be taught, robotics, mechatronics, artificial intelligence, visual and augmented realities, and all manner of creativity. A school that gives the child the opportunity to be captured at the age of 3, and not only that, he gets to learn experiential in an experiential way, but he gets an opportunity to go to school and have with free lunch, school uniforms, even other facilities provided for this child, and there will be no school fees. It poses an equalization. And that's the sense in which I feel that the idea of inequalities, disequilibriums, and inequities in politics have been totally dismantled at the orientation of this governor. So there seems to be a parity in terms of, the benefits, the dividends of democracy accruable from governance, both to the poor and to the rich. And if you look at the circumstances we found ourselves, attending private schools appears to be a sign of affluence in our climate. All manner of schools now emerge, even without recreational facilities, and people are paying humongous amount of money just to live up to that expectation. But today, most of the leaders we have all attended public schools. Why should we sit back and watch the schools, vanish? And it is such difficult moments and such, somber moments that the governor decided to carve a niche in his own time, create a system that other states in Africa can copy.
Okay, before I go into the specific area that the governor addressed, there's one particular thing that touched me personally. It was like an injunction. It was like a clearing call. It was like a request, if you like. It was like an order. And let me just read the excerpt. He said, in Enugu, protect these schools as if they were children. These schools are a once in a lifetime opportunity to bring world-class education home to Enugu. Cherish them, defend them, guide them as a community. Give our people the time and space to grow, to discover, to become. Instill in them the importance of work we do within these walls. Take shared responsibility for our future, which is walking in on 2 small feet every time a child enters these gates. And he added, most eloquently, he said, support the teachers, the custodians, and guardians of our future farmers, entrepreneurs, nurses, artists, engineers, lawyers, and leaders. If you heard this from a leader, honestly tell me, how does that make you feel?
Well, I think there's a sense in which it comes with a measure of pride that we are locking our time where governance has been reduced to pedestrian level, where governance has been made to be dysfunctional, and where, leadership has been debased by coloration of dysfunctional, system and elitist deceit and intellectual dishonesty, even by the most eloquent leaders I've found. But this is a time where we have found a leader who is trying to juxtapose good ideology with practice. And when he said, defend the schools, shield the schools, Remember that he could have gone the easiest way, which is building what I perhaps may call a pilot school, maybe one in one local government, having 17 smart schools, and that would be easily built. He could have also gone the way of building about 68, schools, smart schools, connecting only different areas or whatever you may choose to call it. But he went to the level of connecting every political world, meaning that virtually in every community you find a smart school, meaning that no child will be left behind. He's gone the hardest way, meaning that there's an investment of over 260 billion in 260 political wards of the state. And that is not a project that shouldn't be protected. It should be stoutly defended by the people. And when you have a social contract between the government and the people, it behoves on the people also to protect what the government had offered. I told someone just a few hours ago that the easiest thing to do, even when I've not been opportune myself, is to write off bills or to retire money, as they used to call it in government. But when the government elects to spend money, for the good of our society, in protection of our children, and with a dream of locating a better future for everyone. When you train a child at the age of 3 and gives a particular philosophy or discipline of life to the child, and he gets embedded with discipline, integrity, and character early on in life, it means that you have protected our society from criminality. It means that you have projected a society where your youths can create opportunities for themselves without looking for white-collar jobs. These are opportunities being offered to people. And the best way to go about it, to reclaim our society, there's almost nosediving in terms of quality of character, in terms of what values that suddenly have beclouded us. What we need to do is to do what? Recover our society from the level of destruction that is going on now. There's a mental destruction going on in society, where the young ones believe in what was abhorred in the past, what was rejected by our parents. And suddenly everything is being overturned. So to rewrite the credentials of our society today, you need to find something like the smart schools. You find a school that will not foster, a kind of dichotomy of some sort, where the children of the rich will be in a different school, in a serene environment, and children of the poor will be in dungeons studying. So he has created an environment that looks like a church or mosque, that humbles everyone and reduces us to the same level, where we must respect the dignity of man. So this is the job of the parents. This is the job of the community. This is the job of society at the moment, to make sure that these schools are protected. And then we talk about the teachers now. Coincidentally, I'm a product of 2 teachers, of course. Teachers are viewed in my time as the custodians of the society. They were not rated by the volume of money in their pockets. They were rated by, for the intellectual property. They were rated for their sense of discipline. They were the symbol of the standard bearer of what the society should be like, in terms of reinventing the society, in terms of recreating a society that the people can trust, and remolding the life of a child. So if we really want this school to succeed, I think there's a sense in which we need to start respecting the teachers. The government, on the side of the government, should also elevate the funding in terms of the salary values of the teachers, while the masses as well should embrace these teachers for whom they are and give them the basic support. By the way, it is noteworthy that the government has trained about 11,000 teachers and kept them just waiting for these schools to begin. So they're not going to come from the blues. They've been prepared for this task before them. And these are teachers imbued in, international scientific standards and quality of education, capable of also giving to the child what the child needs. Because the smart school also will require smart teachers.
Okay, that actually showed the humanity in His Excellency. And I would just again take it. He says our sovereignty begins in the classroom. It begins with how we choose to welcome the child into the world. He went for that. And this takes time, care, and investment. And he said, I was not born into comfort. I grew up in the slums of Port Harcourt, where every day was a struggle and nothing was guaranteed. This touched me personally. But one thing was always clear to me. If I could learn, I could grow. He went further, barrister. He said education was my inheritance. And so he wants to give back to children. The one possession that could not be taken away from me by anybody. Meaning that if children also get the same education, so I leaned into it with everything I had. Books became my ladder. Study became my weapon. And in time, education and some street smarts became my passport to a life of possibility.
Well, like I had alluded earlier on, that speech.
Well, it was not like you that had both teachers as both parents as teachers.
No, having both parents as teachers also came with some kind of measured poverty as well, because teachers were not known for their flamboyance or living ostentatious life. They were known for calculated spending. And they were known for.
If you don't have it, you can't spend it.
Discipline. If you miss out the discipline, then there will be no school fees for you.
Yes.
So we had a very tortuous background that molded us to whom we are today. Be that as it may, if I listen to the governor, it's not only inspiring, but it resonates our wonderful past. Wonderful in the sense that at a given time, a child should get a certain level of, discipline, hardship, and you should be toughened by the stories of the past. It shouldn't be just an easy way to life, just like making heaven. The way to heaven is narrow. It is not as spacious and as convenient as people would wish. There must be basic things that must qualify you to make heaven. So if you want to come out stronger in life, the past may also not be as easy as you might envisage. That's the difficulties and penalties inherent in molding a child. Be that as it may, it's also a source that rekindles our nostalgia, that also creates our future, in the sense that the despondency, the hardship of the past, the difficulties of the past may not be enough, to provide a blockade against what our future should be. Through the toughest processes, the best brands may be built. That's what it means. So through his difficult days in the past, you could also realize that it toughened his skills, it gave him the stoical attitude to life, and molded him into the lion that he is today. The governor of Enugu resonates with toughness, resonates with with quality. And he's a man of his own convictions. He's a man of definitive style of thinking. And he takes all shades of opinion and, of course, believes in plurality of opinions. But then, to convince him, the facts must be on the table. And the facts must be persuasive enough, legal enough to also win every other reasonable and objective person in front of him. Having said this, it is on this ennobling note that we really need to confirm the fact that this speech today has given the people impetus to believe, particularly the young people, particularly even parents, that just like if you look at Rangers International, the motto of Rangers actually is through heights, through difficulties to heights. So through difficulties in life, we are bound to get into that standard. And the earlier we use reverse gear in our climb, the better. The way the society has drifted now, particularly in Africa, particularly in this part of Africa, which is Nigeria, and in the southeast, money must not be made to be everything. If we don't get the foundations, this baseless pursuit of materialism will continue. The capitalist mentality is going to destroy our people. So there's time for everything, time for education, and time to also reap the benefits of that education. What education does is to emancipate you, is to liberate your mindset, and to give you the freedom to, to knock on every door without fear, without panic. So no more time for recrimination. It is time for belief. And it is always better to suffer overconfidence than to suffer self-doubt. It is what education provides on our doorsteps.
Okay, still staying on this human aspect of the governor. He said, after he said he went through countless walls of economic circumstance, and bearing a resilient spirit, he will not be where he is now. But the way they provide so, he asks, maybe rhetorically, but does it have to be that hard? Meaning because he went through, must a child in Enugu State go through the same route? He said, no, we can make it easier for our young ones. We can level the field for them. Then he added, most emphatically, I have always believed quality education is not just a private benefit, but a public right.
Yes. Unfortunately, like a lot of people claim, that Nigeria is youth's an unmistakable trapping of a failing nation. And the post-colonial Nigeria, of course, the independent Nigeria, hasn't been able to provide for the people what they ask, what they're looking for. We are colonized by, the British, and most of our leaders go and the rich travel abroad, go for medical tourism, go to catch fun and to enjoy better education and everything. But 60% of the mineral resources of the world is actually deposited in Africa. It becomes an inverse logic that instead of trying to recreate a society where our children will grow up in prosperity, we have unfortunately nosedived into a different coloration of self-doubt, and out of corruption, absolutism, ethnic profiling, all manner of tribalism. We have set ourselves about 50 years back. It's most unfortunate. So as it stands today, education shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right. And we must be deliberate about that. And somebody must step out with that boldness. And that's exactly what the new governor has done. We are not necessarily applauding him, but we are trying to commend him in this process because most of the leadership in Africa, like I said, have failed their people. Only 2 weeks ago, if you could recall, American government particularly came out tough against the third world countries or developing countries. And they singled out Nigerian subnational governments for blame in terms of squandering opportunities to elevate the lives of their people. Unfortunately for them, Enugu is a shining example. Enugu is an isolated case of where the state is being managed and properly developed by the people. I don't want accolades from all angles. Are you aware that the governor has received about 3 awards from the presidency, despite not being of the same party affiliation? Only last week, the wife of the president awarded Enugu the cleanest city with about 100 million naira benefit. So if you want the child to grow up in prosperity, if you want education to become a right, if you want a serene environment where the child can progress, then we need to have a very good transportation system. Exactly why the governor provided about 200 CNG buses and has acquired about 2,000 cabs now, waiting to be unleashed on the society, where these children can also benefit. But remember that for these purpose of these schools, there are vehicles also earmarked for these schools, so that it will convey the students in all the places and remote areas. Be that as it may, it's also silent to know that even the rail system is in the offing, being orchestrated and being imagined by this government. And very soon we begin to hear the stories. So having said this, you do not also have a child that you need to take abroad for treatment. That's why we have 260 type 2 health centers scattered all over the communities. Where you have the smart schools, you also have the type 2 primary health centers. and to make sure that proper diagnosis, highest level of health management is provided for the people. If you go towards that of Barasquia, by the Rangers Avenue, you find a world-class international hospital being built there with a target of displacing even the quality American hospital in Dubai or some other good hospitals you find in the West. That target is that you have to live in a comfort zone. So there is a proper organization, proper management, and proper plan to restore the dignity of Africans using Enugu as an epicenter.
Okay. The governor also proclaimed, he said the smart green schools are not the most personal, are the most personal and transformative project of my leadership to date. This is definitive. He said, look, each of the 206 schools is designed as a complete ecosystem for learning. And he says it integrates technology, critical thinking, and problem solving into every subject. Each has about 25 digitally connected modern classrooms, ICT centers, robotics and AI labs, e-libraries, and space for experiential learning. And he concluded by saying, and they are inclusive. They are inclusive. Every child is provided with free uniforms, books, meals, and tablets. Each school has its own medical clinic, reliable water systems, and community hall that anchor the school in a village life. When you hear this from a governor on a morning that he was truly open the smart schools, you say you're not singing, I agree. But what does it tell you about the governor? If all these things are in place in one building.
Well, it does show that this is the flagship project of this government. And he feels that education encapsulates every other aspect of life. And if we get it right patiently, if we are resolute in our thinking, if we are resolute in our imagination, if we are clinical in our finishing of this imagination, if we are desperate and determined to get it to the finishing line, every other thing will queue on the line. Every other thing will fit into that process. Education, of course, like Madiba would say, education is the strongest weapon with which we can rebuild a nation. And I agree with him that education is the passport through which the future is assured. Just like Martin Luther King Jr. would say, I've been driven to my knees too many times because I have no other place to go. If this is our place and we have no other place to go, we have no choice than to, rebuild a society where our expectations shall be met. And I think if we need not feel inferior, the only way you can beat, the debacle of racism is to begin to recreate for ourselves what the West may provide for themselves. We've got the ability, we've got the capacity, we've got the teachings, we've got the learning. So why not come out and also begin to administer what we have also acquired? Those things that we find there, it's more confident to send your child abroad, but it's more suitable and suited to the nerves of Africans and Nigerians and Indian people, as a matter of fact, to provide an environment where every person's child will be involved in this business of qualitative teaching, qualitative learning. So I think there's a sense in which I feel that the governor is emotional about it and wants to provide an unwavering backing to our youths to succeed. He wants a society where after 10 years, after 50 years, after 20 years, you may sit back in your confident place and watch products of these schools do wonders in America, do wonders in UK, stay in Nigeria and also succeed and take over the politics, and redefine the thinking of this society. To be honest, we need to create a society where our reasoning must change, our value system must change. We begin to prioritize what we need and not what we want. It has to do with the quality of mindset and the quality of mentality.
Okay, and finally, the governor ended on a note that I also want you to comment on. And he says he urged the people to keep faith with the vision of tomorrow is here. For according to him, beyond the walls of these schools, the entire project is taking shape. And he says finally, today represents a triumph of vision and a bold rebuke of cynicism.
Yes.
So how would you end your conversation on this matter this morning?
Yes. It's very simple. The truth is that at the end of every tunnel, there should be a light. At the end of the tortuous path to rebuilding this school, with all the comments from cynics, with all the criticism from naysayers, with all, the negative vibes emanating from the opposition, the governor stayed the course. He never removed his leg from the pedal. And today we have 260 smart schools, some completed, and some will soon be completed. But today, what we have succeeded in doing is that smart schools must have commenced in some of this, as we are speaking in some of the schools, with the students available for learning. So he has tried to, embellish the fact that beyond the scope of the beauty of the school, beyond the intrinsic values, beyond the quality of the learning that you find there, lies the fact that progress is still going on in Enugu. There are about 5, classical, bus terminals have been built. That the Oruruo jetty, the transportation sector, have been set up with the naval base also provided. That for the first time since the creation of the Eastern Nigeria, Enugu, not only Enugu, but only one state emanating from this zone is having an airline of its own, the Enugu Air. That in our time, we will still be alive. To also note that just like Azikiwe and Obara imagined while strolling in the early 50s, that a certain school like the, University of Nigeria Soka may be built. Through imaginations, he has renewed faith, also investing over 100 billion naira in United Palm Produce Limited, covering over 3 local governments. You can imagine the size. It goes beyond the fact that we have schools. He wants to remind you through that connectivity that in every ward you go to, 200 hectares have been reserved for, high class, high profile, agriculture, where mechanization can be guaranteed. We also want to remind you that about 300 hectares have been reserved for, cassava to ethanol productivity. These were the kind of things done in the times of Barr. And only in this regime, Presidential Hotel had been wasted there, been lying in ruins, lying in comatose, as a matter of fact, has been restored. A place commissioned in 1963 by the great Barr. And the same thing, if you go to Niger Gas, in 1962 it was commissioned. But today, this governor has rekindled nostalgia by recommissioning it and making it functional.
Just hold your thoughts. My producer tells me I was going on a break.
Thank you.
The place on bills. So we'll be back shortly. And when we come back, we'll be looking at something completely new. We're looking at the continuous voter registration, how it affects Enugu, and how it affects or impacts the continuity of a government that's delivering. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
Looking for comfort, luxury, and style? Welcome home to House 32 Apartments. At House 32, you're not just booking a room, you're stepping into executive elegance. We have our 2-bedroom luxury suite, complimentary breakfast, continental and African dishes, laundry, handled, 24/7, security covered, free Wi-Fi, of course. So whether you're planning a business trip or a peaceful getaway, House 32 Apartment is your home away from home. We are located at number 32 Ogidi Street, Enugu. Call now to book or email house32enugustate@gmail.com. House 32 Apartment. Live different, stay better.
You are still watching Behind the Headlines, reaching you from Freedom Square TV in Enugu. And this is the second segment of our conversation with Barrister Steve Oruruo, who is the deputy chairman of the PDP in Enugu State. A while ago, we had a conversation around the governor's speech this morning, heralding the transition from the old model school to the smart green schools in Enugu State. It was a historic address. And there were a few points we were trying to make when we went on that break. We appreciate if you can just actually complete that, those are your thoughts.
Yes. I was saying that the governor, in his expression, that conclusion, actually wanted the masses, the electorates, the good people of Enugu, to see beyond the facet of the, smart green schools, in the sense that having provided this in an exquisite and sublime manner, you also need to incorporate the fact that a lot of things are going on that should resonate with the happiness of our people. That the fact that he has restored the presidential hotel, like I said, that was almost dead and lying comatose. The international conference center that was started by Dr. Chimaro Kenaman had also been rebuilt in style, and making a lot of money and earnings for the state, And despite all the legal encumbrances and other impediments or challenges that militated against that international conference center, he was able to dismantle them. And if you also look at the left side of that conference center, depending on where you're standing, you find out that there is another gigantic, edifice, being built around there. It's about, over 300 key hotel that is almost getting to completion, being built by the state. Given that if a leadership is not profligate, if a leadership is not dysfunctional and abysmal, if a leadership is not pedestrian, it is possible that with probity and rectitude, a leadership of a state can actually manage business. This is what the government is projecting. We are saying that it is possible in our climate that the southeast Nigeria, that the eastern Nigeria, in line with the dreams of our forefathers, can still have an airline of their own. That's why we have an Enugu Air. That in our time, we have about 200, CNG, cars, almost unleashed by the government, given the fact that they've paid for it. And about 200 CNG buses acquired with 100 already operational. And having said this, it is very much possible in our time that a leadership may sit back and actually say that we can progress beyond the corridors of, doubts. So this is not time for recrimination. This is not time for self-doubt. It's a time to believe that we can be back again, that Enugu is actually back for good, and that tomorrow is already here.
Okay, thank you very much. Tomorrow is already here. We'll make a transition from the smart green schools to the continuous voter registration that's been ongoing. And if you permit me, it is important to say that democracy thrives when the people's voices are heard. And the most basic instrument for that voice to be heard is the voter's card. You can only become relevant as a voter if you have a voter's card. So as Nigeria inches closer to 2027, my brother, conversations around voter register have gained momentum. And of course, INEC has started that. And most states are struggling to achieve some milestone. And that brings me to the question of where is Enugu in this. Enugu is desirous of having a continuity, so to speak, of the Peter Mbah administration as 2027 approaches. Can you do that without a voter's card? Can you do that without going out there to do what? To revalidate or to transfer or to get involved in the control voters registration? So it was here mantra can only continue if the people vote accordingly. So I ask you, honestly, the tomorrow is here mantra is centered on continuity, technology, and citizen participation. How do you connect voter registration with this vision of continuity?
Yes, it is disheartening to note that in the continuous voter registration process that is going on, it has become very clear that the Southeast Nigeria is not performing well. And I've long argued that the most populous tribe in the whole country is Igbo. Given that in every state of Nigeria that you go today, after the indigenous people, the Igbo will come second in terms of number. The Igbo will come second in terms of the population. Unfortunately, just like the Jews, most of them don't actually stay home. They vote elsewhere. And if you come here there's a sense in which I think apathy has taken over, given the fact that over the years, there seems to be a disconnect between what the federal government is doing and an intent to also ignore the Southeast. And the citizens also begin to feel that hence they are not getting enough from the federal government since the Southeast had been marginalized for a very long time. It appears that it makes no sense to actually participate so much in the leadership recruitment process here. This is a challenge that we are taking up at all fronts. If you really want to have your share in the business of Nigeria as a cake, you need to also invest very well to take your quota. So if you look at what has been achieved, the fact that overall, since the commencement, between August 8th, I think, to 24th, if you look at the very first number that we have seen there, you see that we have seen over 4 million voters,
Across Nigeria.
Online registration. People that had registered online, over 4 million of them. But in terms of substance, because even if you register online, you must come physically to make sure that
you vote.
Not just that you vote, for you to be properly documented. That's when it begins to count, in effect. We have only about 509,000 Nigerians thus far. About that have registered properly. So beyond what you see online, the reality check is that it's about just over 509,000 people. Unfortunately, as at that point in the beginning, Enugu was only about 484%. But immediately after, by mid-September, Enugu also rose in online registration to about 1,839. But in terms of physical appearance and completion of that process, Enugu has about 1,801. The figure might have changed this morning, but the fact remains that it's very abysmal, it's very discomforting, and it doesn't resonate with our population of strength by any means. So it was on this note that the PDP, as a party, decided to go on a drive of a self-reawakening, on a drive of sensitization of the masses, the electorate, beyond the line of party affiliations, beyond the party lines, as a matter of fact. It was a wake-up call of the masses to acquire, to register properly, or to relocate if you need, in terms of where you want to vote. But for any reason that will make you not to vote, you better go and acquire your voter's card and make sure that you are ready for the election. Because the kind of leadership you want will not be different from the people. The people determine the quality of leadership that they have. So if you leave your governance in the hands of ordinary people, even idiots who arise to govern you, this is why you don't have to joke with the leadership recruitment process. The leadership recruitment process actually begins with the acquisition of your people of mass instruction in terms of your ability to have something that you can use to actually enforce or reinforce your convictions in terms of style of leadership.
Participation, not just in politics, especially in everything, in any country, is critical. And so it's also critical as we embark on this contemporary registration, that the youth is seen to be taken along and very seriously, because they represent a vibrant segment of the population. If you do not in any way take the youth into consideration, then you will be actually doing something not there. So I ask you, what specific measures is your party taking to ensure that the youth not only register, but will ultimately turn out to vote?
Well, if you look at the demography of this registration, as of today, you find out about 60% of the registered voters now, are the youth. So people,
by own words, he says it's still a mismatch.
Of course.
So what are you going to do?
60% of the very significant number of registered voters we have,
Yes,
still represent about 60% of the youth. Given this circumstance, it is just continuous persuasion, continuous, deliberate, and passionate plea to the people to come out for their own good. It has gotten to a time where people must rise up to say, this is the kind of society we want. And we must prepare that society to come. We must prepare we must invite that society through our deliberate acts or inactions to find the kind of leadership we want. So people in Enugu, for instance, if they want the kind of leadership they have today, they should arise to protect it. The only thing you can do is to vote. So beyond the corridors of recriminations and casting of aspersions, venoms, and invectives by some people, lies the fact that the masses that will actually do the voting, they have their plan. They know what they want. They will know when they have a government that is working and when they have a government that is playing to the gallery. So they will act at the appropriate time. And you cannot act if you don't have your PVC.
Okay, you cannot act if you don't have your PVC. But Oruruo, you are the chair of the Southeast Disciplinary Committee of the PDP. And of course, internal party discipline is often cited as PDC's one of its weakest links. What steps, if any, have been taken to resolve internal crisis and keep the party united ahead of 2027?
Well, it has become a mantra to say that PDP has an internal way of resolving their crisis, But I also believe that if we dance in the market for too long, questions will be asked.
They will think you're a madman.
As to whether you are still sane or mad. I think PDP has danced quite enough at the national level in terms of the confusion for to see whether they can also get from PDP. But one thing is very clear. All the parties are also maligned by one internal problem or the other, including the APC. So those who also fail to find their footing in these places will still run back to PDP as the general election, gets closer. So we'll see what will pan out.
We'll see what will pan out. Well, critics still argue, and most vehemently, that the PDP in Enugu State is resting on its legacy dominance, rather than actively innovating to win future elections. Is that a true reflection of the state of affairs?
Well, I like the choice of diction. That is how best to describe it. But in terms of reality check, in terms of substance, I do not agree. What I would rather agree is the combination of the both. PDP is striking in Enugu in full throttle. PDP symbolizes good governance in Enugu. PDP has actually luckily too. I think Enugu has been very lucky in terms of the quality of leadership they've had in the past. If you look at the history of the PDP and how much the governors also contributed a lot, as opposed to so many other states, even in the Southeast. You can agree with me that Enugu provides a kind of pole position in terms of relevance But probably because they understand that the Enugu appears to be the impregnable fortress of the Igbo, a place they cannot joke with, the last line of the defense. And the governors defined in Enugu also always look at leadership from that perspective. Nothing embellishes it even better than the quality of governance we have in place today. Having said this, there's a marriage between governance and party leadership. If you have a very good party, it is the party that gets the kind of government that they want. So the party takes a lot of credit from the performance of the government. So the flurry of activities going on, the plenitude of good work going on, the strong foundation being laid today by the government of Dr. Peter Mbah actually would revert back to the party in terms of the mother of the government. The party issues as the mother of the government, at minimum the midwife that begets this brand of government. So Enugu, they say, is PDP. PDP is Enugu. But I tell you one thing. The leadership recruitment process and the level of awareness we have in society today have combined to present a scenario where the masses have become very conscious of what they do with their votes. Today, they look out for the leadership brand. They look out for who is the signage of all eyes at the leadership. Particularly the leadership is very competent, is very productive, and is very, very proficient. What do? They look up to that leadership, and that leadership represents the party that they know. So today, if you talk about PDP, PDP is Peter Mbah. So if Peter Mbah drifts away to another party, if he chooses to go to another party, the masses will go with him. That's the truth. So those in party must be very careful about the quality of candidates they also bring out. If you bring out a candidate that will make a mincemeat or make a nonsense of the efforts of the party, then the party will collapse. So today, as it stands, the party carries the shoulder so high because of the quality of the leader that we have, representing the party and flying that flag of the party. And today, he has reduced the Enugu to, a construction site. He has become a classical example of what governance should be. He has become a global spectacle in terms of standard practice. He has become the signage of all eyes, like I said, and the standard bearer of what the subnational government should be. And this is why the people now look at him as coterminous with the party. When they mention Peter Mbah, they say he's PDP. So if he leaves and decides to carry another nomenclature, that nomenclature gets the same quality of relevance.
Well, I speak to a lot of PDP people, and I hear this if. And if is actually a two-letter word for negativity. Does it in any way imply there's an effort to exit PDP?
No, the point I'm trying to make here is that a certain Peter Obi at some point in the last general election rose to contest. And many people also argue that they had no structure. And indeed, in terms of the fiscal structure they alluded to, he had none. But when he bothered to vote, the masses rose in his support because they believe in the character in question. They believe in the personality of the man. They believe in the sense of rectitude that he carried. They believe in the ennobling history that followed him. And the result, in the court of the masses, they appear to have even won the election.
In the court of the public court.
If you ask too many people, So I don't know whether it has to do with name. This one is Governor Peter Mbah. He carries the same weight of popularity. He carries the same weight of influence over the masses. But he has gone beyond the name factor to embellish, to demonstrate through concerted efforts with other persons in the government to ensure that the quality of life he offers the Enugu people, has been exemplary. So Enugu becomes the epitome of standard governance. Enugu becomes the standard bearer of what a subnational government should be under him. So this is what it is. So there's a marriage between the quality of governance and followership at the same time. It's something that you cannot separate today.
Okay, something you cannot separate. I am zoning and Igbo presidency. Whether we like it or not, whether we deny it or not, it will certainly re-emerge as we inch our way to 2027. The issue of zoning and Igbo presidency. Do you think that PDP is willing and ready to present a credible Igbo presidential candidate? That's it.
Well, I think PDP, first of all, should go for their convention. If they can get the convention right and get the proper people that can manage the party at the national level to give it some semblance of credibility, give it some semblance of discipline that will make people to begin to trust the party. They will begin to command the quality of influence to win the masses in terms of voting capacity or in terms of gaining the votes. Having said this, it is such credible characters you may have to elect through your convention that will sit there and say, what quality of primaries do we offer the masses? If they present a credible primaries devoid of manipulations and rancor, you end up having a candidate that will become everybody's candidate. Even those that may lose in that election will stand up for the candidate elected. And that's how you present a candidate that can influence the Nigerian people. But if you go for, candidacy premised on materialism or a capitalist agenda of earning just funds from those who contested, the result will be very overt again. Mistakes will be made, and you can imagine what the outcome will be. So for a PDP to do well at that level, then they have to get it right. Having said that, in terms of zoning formula, you need to understand that in 1999, the Southeast Nigeria, Ndibo particulars, gave resounding support to Obasanjo, even when no states of the Southwest supported their own. He lost in all the states of the Southwest, but he won in all the states of the Southeast. When power shifted to the North and got to the tables of Yaredua, the Southeast, despite having some candidates as VP, as vice presidential candidates in other parties, totally went for a certain Yaredua, may he so rest in peace, who also governed very well for a while it lasted. So today it was not a mistake. And when power left Yaredua, it came to the South. One would have expected, having seen that Ekweme was in the pole position to become the president as of 1999, given that he was even the one that instituted the six-zone formula that the nation is using today, everything gravitated towards him. But unfortunately, for the sake of a peaceful Nigeria, the mentality of the leadership then was that power should go to Southwest to appease the Yorubas, given what happened to Abiola. And everybody yielded to it. So when power returned to the South again, everyone expected that the most populous nation in the Southwest, in the South, meaning the Igbo, should present a candidate and should be given the slot. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Eventually, power went to Goodluck Jonathan, in the sense that he had taken over from Yaredua and wanted a second term. Given the circumstance, the Southeast again supported. And power went to the North to Buhari by commission or omission. But at the end of the day, coming back to the South again, it meant that it should go to a Southeasterner. It should go to a person from the Southeast. Fortunately, for reasons best known to the leadership of various parties at this level, talking about the biggest parties, that opportunity was squandered. And the conscience of the nation also refused to accept that Igbo man should be president. And that gave rise to the massive support that Peter Obi also had in that time, given that even some known Yoruba people supported it. Some people from the North also supported him vigorously. And he broke the heart of different persons, winning elections in different zones, and even taking the FCT, taking Lagos State, and somehow, as people may claim, taking Port Harcourt. So, at the end of it all, this is where we have found ourselves. In terms of rotation today, common sense will know that Igbo should tactically queue in the line again and know how best to support another candidate so that if it comes to the Southeast, we'll take it this time by the grace of God.
Okay. If it comes to the Southeast, it will be a walkover. But sometimes elections are not about walkovers. It's about a commitment of a people to actually go for what they want. We have just one or two questions to end this conversation, but that will result us to something that is critical about the future of this country. Well, many people argue, rightly or wrongly, but for me it is rightly, that continuous voter registration is not just about numbers. It is about trust. How can the Nigerian political class rebuild confidence, trust the Nigerian electoral process after years of disputed elections? Because believe it or not, these victories you've mentioned, whether it is Jonathan, whatever, and others, have all been disputed elections. And so an average Nigerian is almost not too keen. Our votes do not count. It does not matter. So how can various political parties, not just your PDP, they're not talking to Nigerians, how can they rebuild trust and confidence? Or make electoral people want to go out, register, and vote?
I think the major thing here is that our politics needs hygiene at the moment. Our politics needs to be rejigged. We need to retool our politics. Our politics, has been bastardized, maligned, and totally, vitiated by the inclusion of certain factors that ought not to be. Corruption is basically number one. We live in a corrupt society that oftentimes actually, fails to punish offenders. And people get away from such injustices and swindle the common, wealth of the masses. We live in a society where ethnic chauvinism and religious bigotry had combined to eat deep into the fabrics of the nation. And a lot of decisions are taken coming from the whims of such imagination. If someone is not coming from an area, you don't give the necessary support. People don't give what they deserve to get in terms of merit. So what governs our sharing mentality is the idea of, ethnic profiling and identity politics. It's most unfortunate. Worse still, we have not taken proper, firm decisions in terms of trying to retool our leadership recruitment process. When you still have the presidency, trying to sponsor and even pick whoever leads the INEC, it becomes worrisome. We need to be factual about all these issues. We need a system where the INEC will indeed, just like the nomenclature sounds, the leadership recruitment institution actually is the INEC. They need to wake up. It's a wake-up call. It's a clarion call for them. You keep on making false starts, making mistakes, claiming errors here and there. Nigerians do not have the patience for errors anymore. Whatever they need to give us credible election, they should come out with it. For once, let us have credible election. Let us have an election worthy of recommendation for international bodies and countries. Yeah. So that's my position. But my advice to the masses would be, come out to your numbers. Elections are only rigged when you give people the chance to rig it. If you come out to your numbers, vote, and also defend your vote, I can assure you that the results will be very clear and it will be in line with the wishes of the masses. So nobody sits back home and gets his result. It is a time that the result will be, we want to come out to vote, particularly vote for a government that is performing, vote for a leader that you trust, and also come out in your numbers to defend the vote. Our fate cannot be left in the hands of those who want to malign, who want to rig our processes, who want to scuttle, vitiate, or truncate the business of good governance. It is now time to go beyond the facets of just mere, voting and make sure that you vote, you defend, and you make sure that the result is, that's what they call consensus rigging, as a matter of fact. It is when people, in their own ignorance, acquiesce to, all manner of manipulations. And when you acquiesce, it will be as if you have yielded to their trickles, you yielded to their goals, you yielded to their gimmicks. So this time, people should not yield to any kind of brigandage of any kind, of any sort. Make sure you come out in your numbers, do the business of the voting, protect it, and the result will be better for all of us.
The result certainly will be better for all of us. Well, finally, before the final, looking ahead, it's always good to think about tomorrow, the day after, a month, a year, or two. Looking ahead, what do you think, honestly, would define Nigeria's 2027 elections? Will it be technology? Or will it be security? Or will it be youth participation and votes? Or credibility of the institutions? Or a combination of all?
Well, I'm an incurable optimist. Okay. My faith in Nigeria hasn't dropped completely. Despite there's been, been pummeled and tortured, it's been punched from left, right, and center, but we still remain resolute. We still remain committed to the fact that, yes, we have no other place to go. This is our country, we must stay here and rebuild it. So my own is that it's a combination of all. Our security institutions must have a sense of shame. They must wake up to the reality that people are watching them, and the results are not looking very positive. During the elections, they must be impartial at minimum. They must stand firm for the sake of this country and make sure that they allow people to vote in line with their conscience, vote in line with their decisions. Do not help in scuttling, the wishes of the majority. The same thing applies, like I said, to the Independent National Electoral Commission. They need to wake up. They need to rise up to the occasion. Enough is enough, as Nigerians would say. Give them the best kind of result that deserve. A country is as good as the kind of institutions that they can provide. So I think the ball is now on their own court to play.
The ball is in their court. And finally, many young men and women in Enugu are watching this program. And they are wondering why in the past their votes never counted. And so they're actually worried. Should they register? Should they vote? And should they believe in the tomorrow is here mantra? And so as your final message to the people watching you at Enugu, why should they register? Why should they vote? And why should they continue to believe in the tomorrow is here mantra?
Well, as you could see, it's very crystal clear that in the last election, the votes counted to a very large extent. The votes counted. We saw, marked improvement. And I believe, by the grace of God, it should be a sequential improvement. That in the next election, it should be an election that will resonate with the wishes of the masses. Having said that, it's time for the masses to wake up and take up their pole positions and decide their fate and the fate of their own children. Even if you don't think you deserve the best, don't you think your children should deserve the best? So it is at this very point that I want to call on the masses, in the Enugu particularly. Let them wake up to the realities on the ground. We seem to have a class struggle. Those who believe in the actualization of our dreams and the dreams of our forefathers, those who believe, like Dr. Peter Mbah does, that leadership should be for the masses. It should be to recreate certain things, provide certain, dividends of democracy that individual wealth cannot actually provide. He's the manager of the people's resources. And what he wants to do is to make sure that our institutions function, to make sure that things are working in certain places and that government plays its own role in the social contract. Having said that, this is a kind of government actually that has just within 2 years paved over 130 roads. And not only that, has also flagged off over 300 roads. And now that we're entering dry season, everybody will see with their own eyes that road construction will be massive, given that this is a government that has also built one of the best asphalt plants you can think of in the sub-Saharan Africa, that produces about 160 tons in an hour. So what it means is that road construction will be by far easier. That's why Enugu has turned out to become a beehive of construction going on. So a government that has built and has still finished about 260 smart schools, that has completed about 260 type 2 health centers. At the same time, in 260 political wards of the state, dismantled the history of sectionalism and also eliminated clannish profiling from the lexicon of our politics. A government that has dismantled inequities, inequalities, and equilibrium through fair provision of projects, without recourse to the sentiments of where you come or where you come from or otherwise. This is the government we are talking about. Even government in this time has seen that a certain presidential hotel was standing there, nobody touched it for over 25 years. It was lying in comatose, in ruination as a matter of fact, and decided to rebuild it after it was commissioned only in 1962 by M.I. Barr, as same with International Conference Center. The same government has also rebuilt and commissioned again the productivity going on in Niger gas. And today it was only commissioned in 1962, if you remember. The same government has brought it back to bear. And this same government has also touched the aluminum melting company in Ibetiti, brought it to life. You talk about the government that had also touched a very important institution, a very important industry, the UPPL, which is United Palm Products Limited, and invested over 100 billion naira through the PPP. So the moribund companies are back. And I also heard that AVO is about to be, revalidated again, about to be revived or revamped. And this same government has also stated only yesterday that the coal we have in Enugu can generate 1,000 megawatts of power, meaning that in no distant time, the narrative will equally change. And as I'm speaking now, a certain smart city is going on, being built by, CCC, which is Chinese communication and construction company. This city is going to have gas, electricity beneath the ground, first of its kind in Africa. That's the quality of leadership that Governor Mbah has brought to Enugu, where we expect to have also a rail system. Because when last I spoke with the Commissioner for Transportation, that's the area they're working on now. Not so much about what they're doing in agriculture, which is unprecedented. Combining with the World Bank through the World Bank projects, like I found, like LPRES and Appeal, all the counterpart funds paid. This is a government that has also cleared, the debt owed to our fathers and mothers that have worked very, very hard in terms of pension, and have given an instruction that gratuities should be paid immediately one is retired. No more delays again. And has invested over 4.6 billion naira in terms of provision of grants to farmers. So the efforts of this government have become very laudable. No wonder they've received about, just in 2 years, about 3 awards from the federal government. Not from different bodies, but federal government. Only last week, like I mentioned, the wife of the president gave Enugu an award as the latest city. So the progress is very massive and is very audacious. The only thing we can do from our vantage position as the citizen.
We have given on both subjects. One, the governor's address happened this morning, and of course, the need for our people to do what? To vote, to go and register and have their voters. Because, voter registration is not just a technical process. It is the foundation of democracy. That's what I learned from you. If you don't have it, there'll be trouble. If Nigeria must deepen its democratic culture, then there must be inclusive governance, there must be credibility, there must be continuity at all fronts. No big mistake about it. So, Steve, thank you very much for your participation this morning, and we hope that next time when we call you, out of your busy schedule, you will find time to be here. And of course, to our viewers, this conversation does not end here. The governor's address, what are your thoughts? Go look for them up, it's already in the social media. If you need a copy, I'll send to you. Look at the address, make a comment, either on our Facebook or our YouTube at Freedom Square TV. Until the same time tomorrow, it's goodbye from all of us here in the studio. And remember, democracy only works when you show up. Do have a lovely day, and bye.
Thank you.